At this point, it's well established that Donald Trump behaves like a narcissist. And in keeping with that very fact, Donald Trump is also lashing out at every and any media outlet that gives him negative polling numbers. So pretty much just every single media outlet ever. But now Trump's insane tantrums are getting even worse, and he's just lashed out at the New York Times. However, the New York Times instantly retaliated against Donald Trump, and it was brutal. How's it going, everybody? My name is Hunter Avalone with Occupy Democrats. Welcome back to another video. Now, Donald Trump is not only attacking the media, it appears that Donald Trump is also attacking Christmas. That's right, Trump dismissed Americans' concerns about rising costs because of his tariffs by saying, well, maybe the children will have 2 dolls instead of 30 dolls.
They made $1 trillion with Biden, $1 trillion, even $1.1 trillion with Biden selling us stuff. Much of it we don't need. You know, somebody said, oh, the shelves are going to be open. Well, maybe the children will have 2 dolls instead of 30 dolls, you know. And maybe the 2 dolls will cost a couple of bucks more than they would normally. But we're not talking about something that we have to go out of our way. They have ships that are loaded up with stuff.
Okay, MAGA, let's see how you guys spin this one. Donald Trump is running on the platform of the Grinch. The reason it seems like so many people are against Trump is because Trump is good at one thing, and that is making enemies. In fact, just recently, a former member of Trump's administration went on CNN to explain Trump's lack of economic knowledge.
I think it's terrible to see not just the GDP declining, but prices are going up. You're seeing stagflation for the first time since the Jimmy Carter era. And so I'm sure there's a desire in the administration to put this blame on somebody else, but I think that it's clearly a result of the trade policy. I think a lot of people want to see him go back to the first administration policies of deregulation and lower taxes.
There has been a refrain that we've heard from some administration officials, and now it seems we're hearing it from Trump, like you don't need these cheap Chinese goods, right?
I think it's a pretty elitist perspective. I think the reality is that Americans want to be able to purchase goods because we can afford to. It's a good thing that America is as wealthy as it is.
So Trump is now attacking the media, Christmas, the economy, and also the foundational principles of law and order. That's right, Trump ran on law and order. Now he doesn't care at all about enforcing the law.
The termination letter I received stated the decision was based on your actions and the prosecution of persons relating to the events that occurred at or near the U.S. Capitol on January 6, 2021. An executive order issued on January 20th, 2025, the president characterized that work as having involved a grave national injustice that has perpetrated upon the American people over the last 4 years. It went on to say that my hiring has hindered the ability of the acting U.S. Attorney Martin to staff his office in furtherance of his obligation to faithfully implement the agenda that the American people elected President Trump to execute.
For all his talk about law and order, Donald Trump's brain cells appear to be out of order. But all of this nonsense has culminated to the moment you've been waiting for. The New York Times instantly retaliated against Donald Trump, and believe me, it's brutal.
Tonight, a powerful clash is unfolding between the press and the presidency, as the New York Times issues a direct and defiant rebuke of President Trump's escalating threats, the latest in a long line of attacks on the free press that critics say echo the behaviour of authoritarian regimes. It began with a bombastic post from the president on Truth Social, in which Trump lashed out at the Times, CBS and Paramount Global, accusing them of election fraud and demanding accountability for what he claims was the illegal creation of an answer for a presidential candidate. The case he's referring to involves a 60 Minutes interview with then Vice President Kamala Harris, where Trump alleges CBS swapped out her original answer with a different one to protect her image before the election. Part of his post reads, 60 Minutes perpetrated a giant fraud against the American people, the Federal Elections Commission, and the Federal Communications System. Despite all of the above, and Paramount's CBS 60 Minutes admittance to this crime, and with other similar corrupt removals of answers to questions, the failing New York Times, which is fake news both in writing and polling, claims that People said that the case is baseless. They don't mean that. They just have a non-curable case of Trump derangement syndrome, possibly to the point where the Times' interjection makes them liable for tortious interference, including in elections, which we are intently studying. The bottom line is that what 60 Minutes and its corporate owners have committed is one of the most egregious illegalities in broadcast history. Nothing like this. The illegal creation of an answer for a presidential candidate has ever been done before. They have to pay a price for it. And the Times should also be on the hook for their likely unlawful behaviour. It is vital to hold these liars and fraudsters accountable. The Times responded swiftly, condemning what it called intimidation tactics, and standing firm in its reporting. In a public statement, the paper said, President Trump's post today follows a long list of legal threats aimed at discouraging or penalising independent reporting about the administration. The law is clear and protects a strong free press and favours an informed American public. The New York Times will not be deterred by the administration's intimidation tactics. We will continue to pursue the facts without fear or favour and stand up for journalists' First Amendment right to ask questions on behalf of the American people. The president's legal battle with CBS and Paramount stems from his claim that they manipulated an interview to benefit Kamala Harris. But the New York Times reported that legal experts have largely dismissed the lawsuit as baseless, a detail that appears to have triggered Trump's wrath. Critics say this latest attack is part of a familiar pattern. Trump threatening legal action against media outlets whose coverage he doesn't like, branding unfavourable reporting as fraud, and accusing journalists of criminal behaviour, all while hinting they should pay a price. As Trump's rhetoric continues to escalate, the New York Times has made one thing clear: they're not backing down.
So long story short, we have an independent media company standing up to Donald Trump, refusing to bend a knee to his ridiculous intimidation tactics. Honestly, I'm very happy to see this, and I'm sure it's going to make Trump even angrier. As we know, Trump wants everybody to do what he says when he says it, so the minute he's met with defiance, he usually throws a tantrum.